If you're the kind of gamer who wants a laptop that actually lets you play the titles you love without constantly worrying about heat, lag, or a screen that looks like it was meant for office spreadsheets, you're in the right place. I get it, there are a lot of big-screen gaming laptops out there promising insane specs, but the real question is whether they translate into a smooth, everyday experience that feels worth the cash. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In my research, I dug through a mix of tech forums, Reddit threads, and a handful of early owner videos to see how this machine holds up when you actually sit down to game, study, or crank out a project. First off, let's talk about the screen. A 17.3-inch Full HD IPS panel with an anti-glare coating sounds impressive on paper, but the true test is playing in a bright room or on a plane. The anti-glare coating does its job. You won't be squinting at the sunlit windows of a coffee shop, but the 1080p resolution on that size means individual pixels can be a little noticeable if you're used to 1440p monitors. For most AAA titles, the visual fidelity is still solid, textures look crisp enough, and the wider canvas gives you a more immersive feel, especially in split-screen multiplayer sessions. If you're a competitive shooter who needs the highest pixel density for pinpoint aiming, you might feel a bit cramped, but for most RPGs, open-world adventures, and creative work like video editing, the display is a practical compromise between size and power consumption. Now, the heart of any gaming laptop is the processor, and this model ships with AMD's Ryzen 7 77.3 FHS, capable of boosting up to 4.75 GHz. In real-world tests, that chip handles modern titles like Elden Ring and Cyberpunk 2077 at 3035 frames per second on medium settings without breaking a sweat. That's because the 7735HS balances core count and efficiency so you can have a game running while you're on a Zoom call for class or a business meeting. The downside is that the chip's power envelope is still limited by the laptop's thermal design. In long gaming marathons, say, a 6-hour The Witcher 3 session, the CPU will throttle after the first couple of hours, dropping a few percent in performance. If you plan on pushing the machine with heavy multitasking, streaming, encoding, plus gaming, you'll notice that dip. Graphics are handled by an integrated Radeon 680M. It's not a dedicated RTX card, but it's more than a basic Vega. In benchmarks, the 680M pushes Fortnite into a smooth 7080 frames per second on high settings, and Genshin Impact comfortably sits above 60 frames per second. However, when you crank up ray tracing or try newer titles that demand more VRAM, you'll see performance dip into the low to mid 30 FPS range. What that means in practice is you can enjoy most current games at respectable settings, but you shouldn't expect to hit ultra ray-traced 4K. If you're a casual gamer who mainly plays esports titles or indie games, the integrated GPU is a cost-effective solution. If you're chasing the latest AAA releases at max settings, you might outgrow it within a year. Memory and storage are where this laptop shines for everyday users. 16 GB of DDR5 RAM isn't just a marketing buzzword, it translates into noticeably quicker scene loads in open-world games and smoother tab switching when you have dozens of browser windows open for research. The DDR5 speed also helps with the occasional video render in Adobe Premiere, making the laptop feel versatile for both play and work. Paired with a 1TB NVMe SSD, you get instant boot times and plenty of space for a library of games and media files. The SSD's speed ensures that load times in titles like Assassin's Creed Valhalla drop to under 15 seconds, which is a pleasant improvement over older SATA drives. Cooling and fan noise are always a point of contention. The NIMO uses a dual-fan setup with a fairly aggressive heat pipe layout. In the first 30 minutes of gaming, the fans spin up to around 3,000 revolutions per minute and produce a noticeable whine roughly the same as a small kitchen blender. It's audible enough that you'll hear it in a quiet room, but it doesn't become a full-blown drone. After the laptop settles, the fans drop down to a lower pitch, and thermal throttling stays minimal for typical session lengths. If you plan to game in a shared space or during recordings, you may need a microphone with a pop filter to cut out the fan hum. On the upside, the cooling system does keep the chassis surface cool. You won't be worried about the palm of your hand getting hot during long play. Battery life is a realistic compromise for any 17-inch gaming machine. With a 90 watt battery, you'll get roughly 4 hours of mixed usage, some light work, occasional streaming, a bit of gaming before you need to plug in. The 100W USB-C power delivery with GaN technology means you can charge from 10% to 80% in about an hour, which is handy if you're moving between classes or co-working spaces. Just be aware that intensive gaming will